Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at and whenever you're watching this. We're going to be jumping to Warhammer 40K video here. This is a requested video by one of my YouTube members. We're going to be checking out the true size of the Imperial Navy 3D documentary by Invicta. This is a channel that I am new to. I haven't checked them out before, so looking forward to seeing what kind of video this is and what other kind of content they might have. So links to the original video here and to their channel will be in the description down below, so please do me a favor, go over there, check out this video if you enjoy it, hit that like button, and check out the rest of the content on the channel. If you enjoy their content, you know, be sure to hit that sub button and show them some love. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live, as I am right now with my YouTube members, there's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So if you want to take, you know, like I said, your support to the next level, become a member, check all that out. Regardless, thank you for taking the time to come and hang out, sit down, watch the video. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, consider leaving a like and a subs. It helps me and the channel grow, and it lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see some more. Regardless, let's jump into this. So again, this is true size of the Imperial Navy 99M41 3D documentary by Invicta. Check it out. Like
this is an Imperial warship. The one true means of ensuring the Emperor's gaze watches over all the stars of the galaxy. In the void, its scale can be difficult to grasp. Thus, we can place it beside an aircraft carrier from ancient Terra. From tip to tail, it stretches over multiple kilometers with hundreds of megatons worth of men, materials, and weaponry being propelled through space by reactors large enough to power entire hive cities.
Well, then, when you think about this, then think about the continent-sized ships that the Eldar have, the craft worlds. Yeah. That's crazy too. Just think about that. So the massive shoe in the front, it does kind of, doesn't it?
But this particular vessel is just an escort.
Yeah, this
Close
is a smaller
behind
one.
Come the larger boats of the fleet. Destroyers, frigates, cruisers, grand cruisers, battleships, and other capital ships represent the true spectrum of assets available to the Navis Imperialis. These are not just the eyes of the Emperor's gaze, but the swords of his galactic will.
See, then, like some of these ships, right? These look very kind of ancient Greek inspired, because they would have this stuff here to like ram ships with, to break the oars of enemy ships and or just try to capsize the enemy ship. So, and I mean, a lot of this stuff takes reference from, you know, history, so I wonder if that's where some of these ships were inspired from. That's a lot of guns, brother.
As with all weapons of war, they can be grouped into classes based on size, role, and weapons profile. Thus understood, they can be properly employed for combat. Together, dozens of such ships may form a battle group to hold a subsector. Hundreds of ships form a battle fleet to hold a sector. And thousands of ships form the war fleets, which hold a segmentum. At such scales, it is tempting and often necessary to reduce these imperial assets to numbers on a grand strategy board. Indeed, a dispassionate, analytical lens is often useful when grappling with matters of construction, logistics, and operations from the desks of the High Admiralty.
I mean, you kind of have to, right? When you're dealing with stuff on that large a scale in the Imperium, when you're dealing with trillions of worlds with untold numbers of people living upon them, like a hive city alone can have the population of our current planet in it. You know what I'm saying? So like, you can have multiple hive cities on a single world. That's a lot of, that's a big number to have to try to deal with it that, you know, our brains, I don't think, are really capable of actually comprehending.
Even captains must consult the cold tabulations of their onboard power generators, weapons, batteries, and life support systems. But one must not forget the individual humanity of the ships which defend mankind. After all, each is a world unto itself, with complex communities filling every niche of these pockets of habitable space within the vast, cold expanse of the void. From the upper echelons of the officer corps in the command bridge, to the most lowly of their crew in the bilges, and all in between.
Yeah, and the poor guys that got to sacrifice themselves to refuel these things. Yep.
So today, let us seek to gain a full understanding of these complexities, both small and large, with the true size of the Imperial Navy.
So I'm very excited to show you guys this episode. It is going to be an awesome series. Now in part 1, we'll be looking specifically at overall naval hierarchies, ship classifications, things like that. Then in future episodes, we'll get into individual ships, what it's like to build them, and what life is like aboard such vessels. Now, if you want to get a head start on our series, what you can actually do is check out today's sponsor, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, which was actually the inspiration for embarking on this series in the first place because of just how...
All right, so yeah, we're going to skip ahead, but check out, you know, Rogue Trader, check out his sponsor. He's got a Patreon, check out his Patreon. Some of these videos might be out there early on his Patreon instead of currently available. So, you know, check out all his stuff, give him some support if you want to.
We can begin our discussion at the highest levels of Imperial administration. Here we see that all spacefaring vessels under Imperial control can be broadly grouped into the Imperial fleet, which is parented to the Adeptus Administratum. The fleet then breaks out into 3 major branches: the war fleets, the merchant fleets, and the civil fleets.
I mean, that makes sense.
Alongside them are smaller branches operated by the Space Marines, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and the Inquisition, to name just a few. Also worth mentioning is the Navis Nobilite, which provides navigators to all of the aforementioned groups. For our purposes, we will be focused on the war fleets. Officially known as the Navis Imperialis, it is the branch of the armed forces responsible for maintaining and operating spacefaring warships. Its administrative headquarters is located on Terra. From here reign the Lord High Admirals of the Imperial Navy, who oversee the tens of thousands of ships and millions of sailors under their command. At this highest level,
honestly, that sounds kind of like a low number, right? Tens of thousands of ships. Try to cover, you know, a galaxy. That seems like kind of a low number.
Administration is split between 5 segmenti majoris, with command of Segmentum Solar being considered the most prestigious. Each segmentum has its own war fleet and fortress headquarters led by one of the Lord High Admirals. The total ship count within a segmentum numbers in the thousands. However, not all are on active duty.
Right.
Many will be undergoing resupply, repair, or decommissioning, while entire reserve fleets may lay dormant, awaiting activation in the event of a major threat. Whatever the case, command of the ships within each segmentum is further broken out by sector. These are most usually cubes of space, roughly 200 light-years to a side. Each sector will have its own battle fleet, led by a Lord Admiral. Typically, they will have at their disposal about 50 to 75 interstellar warships, though this can vary wildly. In addition, such battle fleets will have access to many local sub-light vessels, space stations, orbital defense platforms, mine arrays, communications systems, observation posts, and more. The so-called bastion fleets of the Cadia, Agrippina, Scarus, and
yeah, it's true. I mean, but at the same time, there's also like warp travel is very, I guess, can be very finicky, right? Bad things can happen in the warp. So you would think that that wouldn't be something that they would 100% rely on. I don't know. It just sounds to me like they would have more ships, right? Especially with how many threats there are out there with the Tyranids and the Eldar and the Orcs and the Necrons, etc., the Tau. You know, you'd think that they would need a larger navy in order to like really kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I guess just enforce, you know, their way of life.
Corona sectors, in particular, are some of the most extensive and best equipped of the galaxy, on account of their need to engage.
But then again, I guess it could be a situation where, like, once they take over a world, they transfer however many millions, billions, trillions of people from other worlds to there, so people could try to have a better life or whatever and establish the new world. And so they might not necessarily need, you know, as much of a naval presence around. So I guess enforce things, but I don't know. To me, it would just seem like they would need to have a bigger fleet overall, but what do I know?
In near perpetual warfare in some of the most hostile regions of Imperial space. Given that sectors can contain tens of thousands of star systems, it proves impractical to field consolidated battle fleets. Thus, further
because I mean, when they're talking about having trillions of worlds under their control, and they've got the galaxy essentially segmented into these various different segmentums, only tens of thousands of ships in the total fleet sounds very low to me. Again, especially with the different numbers of threats that they have to deal with on all sides. Attacks from the Tyranids, attacks from the Orcs, Eldar, everyone, you know, all these different threats that they're combating. Not to mention the fact that the galaxy's been cut in half, you know, from the Cicatrix Maledictum or whatever it's called, the warp rift or whatever. That's, you know, cut the galaxy in half now, and though half the Imperium's kind of cut off from the home world. I don't know. You'd think the need for more ships would be apparent, but I don't know. Just be having confirmation bias in most battles. I've heard of never been ground battles swinging species with ships serving as troops, transport, or bombardment. Yeah, it does seem low. And they're supposed to be barely hanging on. I mean, yeah. Well, and I guess, like, also, right, isn't part of it also where some of the technology to make these ships isn't even available anymore, I guess, right? So, like, creating new ships is kind of a big deal for them. And, like, or finding new ships or whatever is a big deal for them, something like that. Anyway, let's continue.
Divisions can be made of such operational groups into more ad hoc, non-permanent formations, which are assembled and deployed on an as-needed basis. Major campaigns, for instance, will often see battle groups take the field in a formation tailored to the mission at hand. These will typically be led by high admirals or admirals who operate out of a designated flagship, usually the largest vessel, with the support of perhaps a dozen or more medium and small-class ships. Smaller operations, meanwhile, will be undertaken by squadrons led by commodores or commodore captains. They typically consist of just a few light vessels for missions such as patrol, escort, and reconnaissance. And finally, at the very bottom of this hierarchy, are the captains responsible for individual ships. Within each ship is its own realm of organizational hierarchies. It's a topic well worth discussing, but for now, we shall move on. With this overview of the fleet's level hierarchy in mind, we can now finally explore the details of individual ships. To do so, for each ship type will be beyond the scope of this video. Therefore, we will once more have to speak in some generalities. For starters, we can get a sense of the internal layout of a typical ship. Cutting a section through one, we see that its design often includes the following: a propulsion section with plasma drives for sublight acceleration. A power and engineering section with plasma generators for primary power, warp drives to enable FTL travel, Geller field generators for protection whilst in the warp, and engineeriums to service the ship.
The engineerium.
A rear section with a command tower for control and navigation, mid-decks for major facilities like habitation, armories, and docks, and lower decks for storage and workshops. A midship corridor with infrastructure to host broadside batteries, defensive weaponry, sensor spines, and shield emitters. And a forward section with prow-mounted weapons, a ram, and emergency backup systems. Beyond these fundamentals, each particular ship class may make further adjustments to these basic sections to suit their desired role in battle. With this overall fleet hierarchy established and a generic ship described, we can now review the major classes of warships which make up the ranks of the Navis Imperialis. A disclaimer before we begin is that these will be broad generalizations. The Adeptus Mechanicus has attempted to regulate the classification of vessels based on operating characteristics and weapons configurations. To some extent, the use of STCs and manufacturing patterns has led to some repeatability, but uniformity is ultimately impossible across a galactic empire. With that being said, we can proceed with a generalized model. At the smallest end of the scale are the onboard attack craft, which we have shown as a useful unit for scale. They include various types such as Fury interceptors, Starhawk bombers, and Shark assault boats.
Yeah, this is something that I never really hear talked about much in like the 40K universe. I'm surprised. Maybe there are books about it and they haven't really got into it, but I would think that like there would be plenty of room for like World War II style fighter stories set in the 40K universe, right? With, you know, fighter pilots dogfighting, you know, against other alien forces in large scale battleship, you know, stuff, and the stories just from the perspective of the pilots and the fighters and stuff like that. I'm sure there probably are books like that out there, and I just haven't got into them or heard anyone talk about them. But if there isn't, I feel like that could be a pretty interesting genre that they could get into in the 40K setting.
At roughly 50 to 60 meters in length, these vehicles would tower over most of their terrestrial peers. However, amidst the oceanic scales of the void, they are but minnows in a sea of whales.
Yes. You're talking about, you know, the galaxy and or universe, right? Like, yeah, this little 50-meter long vessel is nothing. Less than a grain of sand on a beach.
With the introduction of our first type of Imperial ships, the Escort class. These are enormous vessels, which stretch out over 1 to 2 kilometers. Weighing 5 to 10 megatons, their titanic structures hold crews in the tens of thousands, with enough power, armor, shielding, and weaponry to rival entire hive cities. In space, however, they are considered small. Yet, as a consequence of this fact, they also come in the greatest numbers. As such, they are often the most versatile, being...
It's usually how it goes, right? The smaller it is, the easier it is to manufacture and mass produce. generally the larger it is, the more complicated it is, and, you know, the more time it's going to take to make something.
Used for the defense of larger ships as well as patrol.
But I guess you're also talking about technology in the 41st millennium, so their manufacturing capabilities, especially when you're talking about the Adeptus Mechanicus, they might be able to make, you know, a battleship just as easily as one of these little guys. I guess it would also just depend on the raw resources available to them.
Picketing, reconnaissance, convoy protection, and raiding. The Escort class is broken out into multiple subclasses. This includes the sloops, raiders, corvettes, destroyers, and frigates, all of which have heavy.
That's what I was thinking too. Like from the mid to back side, like from here back, it feels like this thing is just super vulnerable, dude. Like you just need to get some kind of ship that's fast enough to get around behind its rear. And then there's like nothing this thing can really do about it. Right? That's what it seems like. It seems like quite the flaw. But I don't know. Maybe these things are super maneuverable. And that also might be what they have the fighter ships for, to go out there and protect their rear.
Heavy and light variants. Many of the smaller craft.
That's an interesting configuration right here, though.
Armor or weaponry to be of much relevance to naval warfare. In this respect, the first warship to consider is the Corvette. It is the smallest of the warships, typically built in times of war with simple components and rugged designs, whose profile is best suited for the menial tasks of reconnaissance, mine-laying, and escort duty, which free up its larger brethren for actual combat. The next escort subclass is the destroyer. These vessels have traded some of the speed of a corvette for more weapons and armor. To this end, they typically sport prow torpedoes and a single set of weapon batteries. This makes them capable of technically fighting on their own. Given their size, though, this usually means individuals can hunt down smaller prey, but must use pack tactics and mass firepower to take on larger vessels. As a consequence, they usually keep a distance, using their long-range detection gear to spot targets, fire torpedoes, and skirmish from afar. Frigates, meanwhile, prove more capable of sustained combat on account of their larger size and more robust weapons batteries and point defense systems.
That's interesting. I kind of feel like that's backwards, right? Like, the destroyers are called destroyers because their purpose is to seek out other ships and destroy them. So you would think that would be more capable, but I don't know. It could just be how they label things here.
The Sword class frigate is among the most common in the Imperial fleet, with a robust design which has stood the test of time. Its laser-based weapons and reliable armor make it a classic escort vessel, and it is a well-understood fact in the Navy that no battleship should operate without at least a pair of swords to guard their back. The Firestorm class frigate is another prominent variant, which iterates on the sword design by making use of a prow-mounted lance turret for heavy-hitting, armor-piercing fire. Other frigate versions exist, but shall have to be omitted in our review. Now, we can move on to the next tier
Some of the bigger boys
class, the cruiser. In contrast to the prior escorts, which operate in squadrons, the cruiser is intended for long-range, independent operation. Thus, an ideal cruiser has enough firepower to drive off opposing escorts while carrying enough fuel and supplies to remain away from bases for months at a time.
It always interests me too that each one has the cathedral on top of it.
In battle, light cruisers, such as the Dauntless class, usually feature prow lances and an array of flanking weapons batteries, while Endeavour and Endurance light cruisers feature prow torpedoes and heavy macro cannons. Standard cruisers increase their size and weapon systems to operate like more regular ships of the line. The common lunar And Gothic-class cruisers, for instance, boast powerful lance batteries on either flank.
Okay.
Tyrant-class cruisers, meanwhile, deploy superfire plasma weaponry for long-range fighting.
Okay.
Dominator-class cruisers use Nova cannons for extreme-range combat.
We got the sniper ships.
And Dictator-class cruisers open expanded launch bays to unleash swarms of attack craft.
These are the carrier groups. Okay.
As cruisers become more heavily armed, they are liable to become reclassified as battlecruisers. These ships boast formidable weaponry typically reserved for larger class warships.
6 torpedo launchers.
However,
okay.
This added range and firepower comes at the cost of onboard space and energy, which reduces their efficacy for long-term operations. Moving on, we get to the highest tier of
big
warship,
boys, the real
the
big
battleship
boys.
class. These behemoths of the stars can be up to 8 kilometers in length, with crews numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Their incredible size means they boast the most formidable weaponry and robust shielding of any other ship in the fleet.
Yep.
However, on account of such advanced features, battleships take tremendous resources to construct, spending decades, if not centuries, in the largest shipyards of the Imperium before ever being deemed ready for combat.
That's kind of crazy, right? Like, centuries to make? I mean, I guess technology, right, isn't necessarily progressing much in the Imperium. Because my initial thought is, Jesus, it's taken so long. By the time it's done, it's already, like, ready to be decommissioned because the technology should have surpassed it by then. But I guess, right, like, technology's not really changing much in the Imperium. I guess kind of in present time, it's starting to progress a little bit with what Belisarius Cawl is starting to do, you know, with creating the new Space Marines that I can't think of, the Primaris Space Marines and the Primaris Dreadnoughts and some of those things, and I guess making some better armor with them. So maybe some of that technology might be able to be scaled into some of the ships and making some better ships now, maybe. I don't know, but that still seems like it really wouldn't be worth to make a ship like this if it's literally going to take centuries to make.
As a consequence, many of the Imperium's battleships are thousands of years old. In service, they are similarly slow to maneuver. Yet, once in position, the firepower they can unleash is unparalleled in its destruction.
I mean, yeah.
The Retribution-class battleship, for instance, is a close-quarters brawler, with rows upon rows of mighty weapons batteries lining its sides for devastating broadsides, capable of saturating the void with projectiles thick enough to walk upon. The Apocalypse-class battleship, meanwhile, prefers to tear apart enemy lines from a distance by pounding them to atoms with long-range, hard-hitting blows from its flanking arrays of lance batteries and Nova cannons. Truly, these sorts of battleships are the pride and jewels of the Imperial Navy. With only a handful being present within any given fleet, they often act as the flagship of such formations. But even larger warships lurk in the arsenal of the Navis Imperialis.
Flagships.
The Gloriana-class battleship is one such example. Stretching out over 20 to 30 kilometers, it is the flagship of flagships, originally built during the Great Crusade for...
Yeah, and I mean, like, it has, like, mountains of the cathedral built on it, dude, like... Jesus.
Each of the Primarchs and their legions.
I was going to say, this must be like what the Vengeful Spirit would probably have looked like.
In the 41st millennium, the roughly 20 surviving Gloriana battleships have since been divided between the successor chapters of the Space Marines with but the Amphion remaining with Imperial naval forces as the linchpin of Battle Fleet Solar. The sheer power of such vessels is beyond comprehension.
Yeah, like, look at
and
that.
In many ways,
look at that firepower
serves
from
as
the broadside there,
ultimate
dude.
guarantor of Imperium's dominance of the stars. Beyond this, only the Phalanx Mobile Fortress Monastery or the lost flagships of the Emperor exceed their size. A deeper dive into such topics is certainly warranted, but we'll have to wait for another time.
All right. Is that it? No.
In our next video, we shall examine how the warships of the fleet are built and operated.
Okay.
For now, you can catch script previews and download HD versions of our art.
There we go. So yeah, check out his Patreon if you want to check out his stuff to give him some support. Go over to his channel, hit that like, subscribe. Links will be down below in the description as always to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to Invictus channel here. So yeah, check out his stuff. Great video. You know, I've never really kind of gotten into the actual sizes and capabilities of the various ships. I definitely have a hankering to download Battlefleet Gothic, install and play that, as that's another game that I've yet to finish. And I look forward to some of these other videos in the future, getting into how they're built, the resources they take. I would love to see him get into like some actual like naval combat, and like kind of how like growing up, man, I used to love those old like World War II documentaries you'd see on the Discovery Channel or the History Channel, and seeing, you know, how the various battles took place and yada yada. So like I would love to see, you know, some like naval stuff like that done for like 40K battles and stuff like that. Arbitrene's done a little bit of stuff like that with some of his, a couple of his videos, like the Damocles campaign, he did some stuff like that, and also with the other Civil War kind of thing that broke out that I can't think of the name of right off the top of my head. But yeah, I would love to see some more stuff done kind of similarly like that. But great little video. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub on my channel here. If you enjoyed my video with my commentary and reaction, if you'd like to join us as I do these reactions live with my YouTube members, like I'm doing right now, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So if you want to take your sport to the next level, become a member, check all that stuff out, and see if it would have any interest for you. Regardless, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to come in, hang out, and watch the video. If you're still watching here to the very end, I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one.